Hey guys, sorry I'm late. I was working on lesson plans.
Hey, how are you? Able to get together? Yeah. Seems like it's been such a long time since our last meeting. You look stressed though. What's up?
Stressed is one way to put it. You know how it is when your school comes up with the next best thing and they expect you to do tons of work and you have meetings every other day, and for what? You're going to implement a new program that's going to fail in a couple of years.
Yeah, it can be really frustrating. Maybe we can help. What are you guys trying to implement?
These professional learning communities, it just seems like a lot of work, and the school administration doesn't seem very organized at all. One of our first tasks is to identify what material in the class matters most. I have no idea where to start.
Well, good thing is you have us on your side. Our school's been doing PLCs for several years now, and we feel like it's the best thing the American school system's put into place. Once you understand what you're supposed to do, it isn't that bad.
For some classes, I feel like I have too many resources to pull from, and some of my classes, I feel like I don't even have enough to pull from.
Well, that's why the communities work so well. For instance, you teach geometry, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, for other teachers who teach geometry, you guys get together, discuss what the most important concepts are that the students need to learn. Then all of you will be teaching the same concept at the same time, and when something goes right, you share with others. When it doesn't go right, you ask what went wrong.
So I'm not going to feel as so alone when I'm teaching. That's like having somebody to back me up. I like the way this sounds. Another problem is that the kids seem like they are all on different pages. Some of them are strong in solving equations, but then some are strong in cube roots and symmetry. I feel like it takes me weeks to get them all on the same page so that I can teach them.
That's exactly the point. That's when essential outcomes matter. When you decide as a team is going to be learned from class to class and year to year, you avoid that confusion. PLCs are very clear about what learning looks like and how they're going to measure students' proficiency. When a teacher has a student who is struggling, the team works out a plan for that student to become more successful.
Cool. This concept sounds like it is the best thing. Our school is always trying to fix the brokenness within the building. Has there ever been any research done on this?
Oh yeah, research says the most important factor in student achievement is a guaranteed and viable curriculum, and the two critical aspects of viability are opportunity to learn and time to teach.
Okay, well you're going to have to give me a little bit more because I don't quite get what you're saying.
Well, it's easy. There are three kinds of curriculum. The first one is the implemented curriculum, and that's what the first one is the intended curriculum, and that is what the good old state develops. The implemented curriculum is what we teach, and the attained curriculum is what the student learns.
So we figure out that out within our groups, what we should teach, right?
Right.
Did you mean that there were two? Didn't you mention that there were two aspects?
Yes, the second one is focused on if there's enough time to teach and what is expected or not. In the end, there's not enough time to teach everything they expect us to teach, so it's important to choose the most important concepts and to work with other grade level teachers to see if some of the concepts are taught in other classes.
Are these steps to figure out what the essential outcomes are?
Yeah, the essential outcomes, also known as power standards or grade level expectations or performance descriptors, it's a very clear list of student learning outcomes for a given grade level or content area. The first step to determining this is starting the discussion with your PLC team by asking questions like, what do we want the students to know and to be able to do?
That sounds like a pretty broad question, though.
Yes, so one activity you can do to narrow it down is having each teacher answer two questions. One, what are 5 to 7 essential understandings I want every student entering my geometry classroom to have? And 2, what are 5 essential understandings that I'm willing to guarantee that every student leaving my classroom will have? This will begin the discussion about what's really important, and then you gather information from standards, state assessment information, curriculum maps, report cards, and even lesson plan books to determine your essential outcomes.
Okay, but most of the standards are broadly written, and they overlap in many grade levels. How do we narrow them down?
Well, teams use 3 criteria: endurance, leverage, and readiness for the next level of learning.
Can you elaborate on each?
Of course. Endurance is the information adults easily remember from their own student learning. It is the stuff that students remember after the assessment, like a right angle is 90 degrees. Leverage is the standards that identify understanding across multiple subject areas, such as learning to interpret graphs, and that's taught in math class but applied in science class. And readiness describes those standards that are prerequisite to future learning, such as knowing geometry vocabulary terms before using them in a proof. Teachers should individually sort the standards into the 3 criteria, and they'll find that sometimes those standards fit into more than one.
And then the term decides, excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm thinking. So the team decides together what the power standards are going to be?
Yes, keeping in mind Marzano's research on a guaranteed and viable curriculum to make sure that they're creating a product that's going to work.
But that seems easier said than done.
Well, it's important that you use consensus rather than compromise, because that can lead to problems down the line. The point is not for teachers to go back to their classrooms and then again make individual decisions about what to eliminate and what to teach. The point is if it becomes difficult to agree, research best practice literature regarding what to include and refer to state assessments and content, and that's where it's likely to show up.
I would think that questions like, is the standard really a power standard for the content or grade level? Is the power standard really needed to be able to learn other important information? Am I including just because I enjoy teaching it rather than something I believe the students need to know?
Exactly. It sounds like you're getting the idea. We have to pull the weeds in order to protect instructional time. And it's okay to debate in order to reach an agreement. It'll foster a better product and increase the overall understanding of the team.
So after consensus of power standards, what's next?
Alignment. The team should examine the state's assessment to make sure that the standards that they've picked fit a similar pattern with the majority of the questions on the test. Also, the team should review the work of teachers who teach in the same content at the grade level above and below to eliminate redundancy and gaps.
Well, that makes sense. Now, how will we know if the students have learned?
Well, that's the second critical question. First, teachers must be clear about what proficiency looks like. Often teams will create collaborative scoring guides, such as rubrics, to agree on proficiency. Then they score common assessments until they feel that each teacher is given the same score for the same work. And teams should reach an agreement only if the essential outcomes, but know how they'll be measured. What students will be able to do, which is focusing on the verb of the standard, and what students will know, focusing on the noun of the standard.
So once you get all of this implemented, how do we convey the changes we are making to the students and the parents? I'm sure the parents want to know when we're making changes to the child's curriculum.
Yeah, that's a very important aspect. There are a few ways to go about informing not just students, but the parents and also everyone in the community who's interested in the local education system. A lot of schools are now publishing this information on their school website so that everyone is aware of the most important outcomes for each grade level and subject.
Yeah, but do the parents really go on the website and look at this stuff? What if they disagree with the changes that have been made?
Actually, most parents are supportive about the changes and the information being offered to them. They're grateful that the curriculum is so clearly laid out and that it's much easier to understand.
Okay, so PLCs are sounding a lot more appealing to me. Once we, the collaborating teachers, agree as to what the essential outcomes are, how do we decide when and what order to teach the material?
Well, the first thing is you want to create a pacing guide.
Well, what do you mean, team?
Well, most schools have a way of grouping teachers. Sometimes this can be on grade level, sometimes this can be by content. It just depends on what works best for your particular school.
Well, I get it. Now explain what the pacing guide is.
All right, a pacing guide is a way to track what is being taught for how long it should be taught. It can be a monthly task, or your team could do it, map it out for the whole year. This will ensure that a level of emphasis and rigor for each outcome.
What about unforeseen events or state testing?
Well, you definitely want to take into account unforeseen events as well as specific events in which we don't know the dates. This could include snow days, map testing, ACT, Explore testing, COGUT testing, and other stuff like field trips, emergency drills, all that.
Well, about the state testing, it would be a good idea to cover as much of the essential outcomes as possible before the test, right?
Absolutely. If you know that the 8th grade is going to need to know a lot about literary elements and how to write an editorial, you want to cover that information before you get into the information that may not be on the test, like poetry interpretation.
The pacing guide sounds like a great idea. How do you know if it's working as well for everyone else as it is for you?
Well, you would continue to meet with your team to discuss how the pacing guide is working and how successful your students are at meeting the outcomes and what the data from the common assessments are revealing about the instruction of each individual teacher. This is also a good time to reevaluate the pacing guide and make changes if, there's pesky unforeseen events.
Yes. Gotta hate those snow days. What do you mean by making changes?
Well, if teachers look at the feedback from students, they may find that there are some lessons that did not go over very well with the students, and therefore the teacher needs to spend more time going over that material. Conversely, some data may show that during pre-assessments, the students have already mastered some of that content, and the teacher didn't need to spend as much time on the material. This will force the team to make changes to the pacing guide as well as changing the essential outcomes.
So when do the teams meet? I know at my school the teachers have busy schedules after school. Do the PLCs meet during school or during their planning period, on separate days where the students are off, or after school?
Well, there are several times the teams can meet, as you stated. The most common are during school day, during planning, or during an actual PLC day at school when the students are not there. There are pros and cons for each. If the school meets as a whole, every teacher is on the same page, so to speak. Everyone is receiving the same instructions and following the same process. Not to mention, things get done faster. However, when the teams break up to get into their small groups by grade or content, teachers that teach more than one subject or grade are not able to attend each meeting. They have to pick one. This is the case in my school. I teach 3 grades. So I have to hunt down 6 English language arts teachers and meet with them for about 20 or 30 minutes each. I'm losing a lot of collaboration time here, and I'm not always informed as to what the other teachers are teaching and what the grades are doing.
Wow, so it must be better to just meet in teams during the school day then, right?
It can be, but keep in mind not everyone has the same planning period, so you would have to attend multiple meetings on multiple days at different times, either before school or after school. I would have anywhere from 3 to 6 meetings per week.
The only thing that concerns me is that I'm going to be losing my academic freedom. I want to be able to have the say in what I teach, when I teach it, and for how long I'm going to teach it, and what way I want to teach it. I mean, is constructing enough with the district curriculum, state standards and national standards?
True, but keep in mind there's no way we're ever going to have enough time to cover every single standard in every content area every year with every student. By applying the essential outcomes, pacing guide, and utilizing help from professional learning communities and your team, power standards are much more manageable.
Okay, I see. So in the long run, it will be simpler to plan ahead with a team than to do it on my own.
Yes, working in isolation cannot be as productive as putting minds together to create new ways to do things. The teachers will become more engaged, better understand what the standards actually mean, and agree on the definition for proficient and what it looks like, and agree on what's the most important concepts to emphasize.
It takes time, but it's definitely worth it in the long run.
Well, I am sold. How do I begin PLCs in my school?